Okay, next news topic. Well, not so much a news topic, more that Tom's been sort of circling back and taking a look at some other games, one of which is Ark Ascended, which is basically an Unreal Engine 5 revamp of Ark, as far as I understand it. Tom, tell us more.
Yeah, for sure. We don't usually get to see this, and I went into this thinking it's a simple remake versus original comparison piece, and that'd be interesting enough. But what we've actually got is a game on console with a console command menu. I don't know if there are many games which can claim to have that, but I can't put a finger on any on PS5 or Series X. But what this gives you is the almost full suite of options you'd have on PC by hitting the tilde key on your keyboard, and you can connect a keyboard to your console, PS5 and Series X, and access it that way and type in all the commands that way. And I think the main point here is that the game opens out by default with no VSync, tearing across the screen. It looks hideous by anyone's standards. Runs at 30 to 35 FPS in the opening area. It runs at 1440p. The display port anyway is 1440p. I think it's native as well, 1440. And they're going all in with UE5 features. They've got the volumetric system for clouds, the fog. They've got dynamic global illumination, which looks great. And they're really trying to tick every box to say, hey, we've arrived with this.
Even nanite?
You know what? I'm not sure about nanite. I'm not sure. Not 100%. I'll have to look that up. It is obviously on the command console to enable and disable, but I didn't have any way to tweak any of that. But yeah, they're going hard on UE5 features, and as we've seen with a lot of UE5 games, doing a lot of this stuff actually gives you quite poor performance sometimes if it's not reined in a little bit. And really, this is a 30 FPS game. So I guess there are three things that are... The sort of thing that I wanted to do is see if I could optimize it myself using this command menu. And I used PS5. I've sent Oliver a bunch of footage, maybe too much. Sorry, Oliver. And there is a three-pronged approach. Firstly, reducing the resolution. You've got an ability to enter a command for secondary display and enter a scale value. So at say 1440p, enter 50 at the end of that, you've got 720p. That seems to be the lowest point before you get diminishing returns on lowering the resolution. You can go to 540p or 360p if you like. You're really not gaining very much. It's going to look horrific, and I'm sure the footage bears that out. But yeah, you'll still be in the 50 to 60 FPS range, mostly at 50. So lowering the resolution on its own doesn't do much for the game. The second option, if you reset all of that and go back to, I should also mention, you can enable VSync very easily with a simple command line, and that gets rid of all the tearing. The other option is to reduce settings, and there's no granular controls, obviously. We don't have development tools here. We have just a command line to enable or disable or go between quality levels. So you can do that for shadows and disable shadows. So I tried to peel back as many graphical settings while staying at 1440p to see if I could get to 60. And my God, it takes a lot to get there. So volumetric clouds, volumetric fog, gone. It's still not there. Getting rid of the dynamic, getting rid of the shadows entirely. Still not there. The most substantial way to get there, though, is the fog and by getting rid of the dynamic global illumination, which seems to get you most of the way to 60, and then lowering the resolution again, you'll get all the way there. So too long didn't read. It's just a bit of a mess for getting it to 60. There's no real at a core level, the density of the world design, with all those foliage elements, the trees, everything's physics-based, like dinosaurs looming on the distance. It feels like there's no easy way for current PlayStation 5 hardware or Series X to really get over the line. without more granular sort of draw distance controls, and this might be a prime candidate for a follow-up sort of mid-gen refresh just to see how it runs on there.
PS5 Ultra Boost mode. I'm quite looking forward to this in a world where you're not able to get 60 frames per second, 360p.
360p. Oh my
1920.
God.
I'm just looking at the footage here. 1920 by 1080 target, 33% scale, 360p, and 54 FPS.
It's for that retro look.
Starting to look at that original Switch port.
Well,
Yeah.
well, that's the thing, right? They actually put a lot of effort into the revamped Switch version.
Yep, they sure did.
And yet we seem to be back to square one with this.
So who handled this version then?
I don't know. You'd think it would be the original developer, possibly?
Because
It's a mixture of developers.
Really?
But yeah, well, they have different studios on different versions.
Exactly.
And they outsource different parts of it. But yeah, it's definitely not. There's no foresight, and I think if this is the worst case of a developer leaving it to the user to optimize their game for them,
Is it
they
actually,
literally have not.
Is it actually like really apparent to the user that you can do this, or is it just like a thing that happens if you have a keyboard attached?
Oh, it is actually an option in the settings menu. You go, and then there's a toggle. Do you want the command?
So there is encouragement from the developer here to use this.
A tiny bit, yeah. There it is there. And if you're not bothered to do all that, there are mods. There's a whole mod section built into the game's front end just to let you access other people's attempted optimization of the game, which is, bizarre.
right, the Switch one was done by Grove Street Games. Remember?
Yeah, of GTA Definitive Edition.
Which that wasn't great, but they did good on revamping Ark.
They did.
I assume they did not work on. Wait.
What?
They might have contributed to Ark Survival Ascended as well.
Okay, so Tom, final thoughts on this particular escapade.
There's no ideal way to optimize this game for PS5 or Series X if you're doing a DIY approach. But I guess if it is meant to be a 30 FPS experience, you have like one final last ditch sort of option, which is a 30 FPS cap. Easy enough to put into the command line there. And the snag is really that it's got uneven frame pacing. So
Brilliant.
as if it couldn't get much worse. It's almost, I don't know which. It's like pick your poison.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, this would have been a fascinating live stream.
Yeah,
Just get the audience involved, trying out different settings. It would have been quite an interesting experience.
I should have done another. I need a new episode of John Plays or whatever.
Yeah, John versus
John versus
versus Ark.
Ooh, my worst nemesis.
It's it looks terrible no matter what you do with it in the command line, and it's just a shame because there's actually a decent looking game beneath it, but we just need better hardware to get it over the line, or just more of an effort from the developer to kind of tweak its visuals.
Well, they did it on Switch, so I don't see why this is such an issue for PS5.
The way I always put it is like 60 FPS, for instance, it's a design choice, right? We've had 60 FPS games going back to the 70s. If they're making a game and they know what the platform is and it runs like this badly, I don't think there's any excuse. I think that's just bad engineering, bad decisions made by the development team. I would say they did a poor job. And I mean that, it shouldn't have been released like this. And we've seen it with the Switch as well. Like the Switch,
that's like virtually every version.
I know.
Of Ark.
I think Ark is just a mess overall. Only that Switch version, kind of that revamping of the Switch version was probably the most impressive thing I saw. But that forced them to go back and squeeze every little bit out of it to get a reasonably playable game on that machine. But it seems like every other release of this game, still, it's always super sloppy. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean,
Yeah, one to return to. If we could turn this into some sort of benchmark, that'd be amazing. Because there's a lot in
I think you
here.
could. I think the nature of the game is slightly problematic, though, because isn't it quite dynamic?
Yeah, thinking about that, you can boot the game and it's more or less the same time of day every time. I did this a bunch of times because it got to night and I thought, well, it's not a fair test anymore to change the resolution and all that. So there is a way to kind of make it, standardize it. So we'll see.